This is Osaka in the 1700s. You can see the waterfront is low-lying and flood-prone, and the Yodogawa River is wandering around at the top of the map. This is Osaka today. The waterfront is reclaimed land and man-made islands, and the Yodogawa has been straightened. You can also see the canals that are so important to Osaka's history and how they've been etched into the modern city as streets and highways. What we're going to talk about now is the Shijimi River, the river that disappeared. Dojima was once an island formed by the Shijimi River, and then there was the great Tenma Fire. This is the Shijimi prior to the fire. Dense wooden buildings lined both sides, and after the fire was nothing but rubble, and they just put that rubble into the river, and the river disappeared. With that as an introduction, I'm down at the river with Steve Newman. Steve is a long-time Osaka resident who did things right and now spends half his life in Washington and half here in Osaka. We are at the Dojima River, and we're going to trace the course of the Shijimi River through the modern city. And we're going to start right over here in a little parking lot between those buildings. I think the mound, that mound may be what's left of the riverbank. And if you look down, there are ashes, charcoal. I think that is the remnants from the great Tenma Fire. Charcoal. And that just blows my mind. Midosuji Boulevard is Osaka's main street. It connects Umeda, which is to the right, with Namba, down in the south. These are Osaka's two main shopping and transportation hubs. It's a beautiful street in places. There are lovely golden trees in the fall, and in winter they light it up with purple lights. It's very beautiful. Our goal, however, is right over there. There is Newman standing next to a monument to the Shijimi Bridge. This bridge went over the Shijimi River, and this street here would have been the south bank of the river. So we're going to walk what would have been where the north bank of the Shijimi River was. And not a lot of people know about this river. I didn't know about it until I did some research for a book, And when I was scouting this area out a couple weeks ago, I stopped at two kobans, which are small police stations, and the cops didn't know about this river. Interestingly, I asked an old man who was guarding the gate to a parking lot, and he knew about it. Did you know about this river, Steve?
I had no idea, and I partied hard down here.
This would have been the north bank of the river, this street. And to the left was the island of Dojima, which at the time was a red light district. And it is now Kitashinchi, a high-end, or it was a very high-end entertainment district, during the bubble particularly. Steve,
Yeah.
what can you tell me about Kitashinchi?
Well, during the bubble years, it was very bubble. Lots of bubbles.
Lots of bubbles.
Bubbles everywhere. Very effervescent.
Yeah.
Lots of money.
Is it that way now still?
No, it is not.
Yeah.
Funny enough, when the expense accounts dry up, so does a lot of the effervescence.
The bubble refers to the rapid economic expansion in Japan during the 1980s. Among other things, it was characterized by extravagant spending. And this area was where it was happening. We're going to continue down the north bank to another bridge. So here's a plaque commemorating a bridge in a play by Chikamatsu Monzaemon, by the man considered Japan's Shakespeare. And it's a puppet play which is huge in the 1600s and 1700s, Bunraku. Steve, have you ever been to Bunraku?
Yes, I have. Matter of fact, I used to live next to the theater here in Osaka, the National Theater. Well, I found it interesting, and they serve beer.
Well, what's interesting is Chikamatsu's plays, more than one, were about double lover suicides. In this particular story, a young man who falls in love with a prostitute who's working over in Dojima, which is on the other side of the river. To our right, over here, that's the river, that's where the river was. And it was an ill-fated love, and from here they crossed this bridge and they walked over to a shrine that is still there and has become somewhat of a tourist attraction due to this play, and they committed suicide there. The shrine is Ohatsu Tenin, that's the popular name. The prostitute's name was Ohatsu. This shows the river. Now, this shows the river here. You can see that this street here, this street that we're on, right here, is actually an offshoot from the river, and the bridge is not on the Shijimi River, but on this other offshoot.
So you're saying in this area, a guy comes down, parties hardy, falls in love with a woman, a party woman, and then they commit double suicide.
That's right. Well, you know what's really interesting is that Chikamatsu's plays were banned by the Tokugawa government because of copycat suicides. Young lovers started killing themselves because it seemed so romantic. Continuing along the north bank, we come to where the Dojima Island had been split in two by a canal that had been dug up to the newly built Osaka station. This intersection was once the intersection of two rivers. There's a couple markers noting the bridges. This one's a little bit crooked. One across the street. This painting is from Hasegawa Sadanobu in 1869. It's titled the Yotsubashi Bridge at Kitashinchi. Whether it was at that intersection, I don't know, but it gives you the feeling for what these bridges were like. And on to the final X on our map. Dojima Yakushido, that modern golden soccer ball looking building, is a temple. And the original temple was built on that spot in the year 593, over 1,400 years ago. It marked a spot where a ship carrying lumber on the Shijimi River sank. Where those buildings are was the river. In those days it was wild and natural. In the early 1900s, they decided to move the temple. They put in an office building, and as Newman can tell us,
Post-war, really small 1950s post-war movie theater. And back in the day, 40-something years ago, you could pay 500 yen and sit in the theater and watch movies all day.
The people responsible for that desecration all suffered bad luck and ill fortune, and it led to the legend of the healing Buddha. And in 1999 they moved the temple back to where it belongs when they built that high-rise. The bookstore I mentioned in Osaka happens to be in that high-rise, but that's another story.